Picture this. Scientists at Uppsala University just published findings suggesting that consciousness didn't start in your brain. It existed before the Big Bang itself. Yeah, you read that right. Everything you thought you knew about spirituality, energy, and awakening might have just been flipped on its head. Dr. Maria Strum's research proposes that consciousness operates like a universal field, threading through reality itself, and you're not just experiencing it, you're a living expression of it. If that doesn't make you question the nature of your existence, stick around because what's coming next will shake the foundation of how you see the universe and your place within it. When science finally catches up to ancient mystics. For thousands of years, spiritual teachers whispered about universal consciousness. Whether they called it Brahman in Hindu texts, the Tao in ancient Chinese philosophy, or the divine matrix in mysticism. They spoke of an invisible energy connecting every soul, every particle, every moment of existence. Western science laughed it off as mystical mumbo-jumbo, until quantum physicists started scratching their heads at particles that seemed to know about each other across impossible distances. Now, recent experiments with microtubules, those tiny tube structures in your brain, show they're performing quantum operations that classical physics can't explain. These microtubules might be the bridge between your individual awareness and that massive field of consciousness swirling through the cosmos. Here's where it gets wild. Researchers at Wellesley College discovered that when they stabilized these microtubules in rat brains, the creatures stayed conscious longer under anesthesia. This wasn't some abstract theory anymore. It was measurable proof that consciousness operates on quantum levels. Roger Penrose, a Nobel Prize winner, theorized back in the 90s that consciousness arises from quantum wave functions collapsing in your brain's microtubules. Think about it like tuning into a cosmic radio station. You're not creating the signal, you're receiving it, translating universal consciousness into your personal experience. Your brain isn't manufacturing awareness. It's acting as a sophisticated antenna picking up frequencies that existed long before you took your first breath. The implications hit different when you realize this means your higher self isn't some metaphorical concept. It's your direct connection to this universal field. Meditation suddenly makes sense from a physics standpoint. You're quieting the mental noise so you can sync with clearer frequencies of consciousness. Those moments of profound inner peace you felt, that's not just brain chemistry. It's you tapping into the fundamental fabric of reality itself. Dr. Strum's model suggests that coherent mental states during meditation might produce measurable correlations across biological systems, from synchronized brain waves between people to coherent light emissions at the cellular level. This is why spiritual practices aren't just feel-good activities, they're literal technologies for accessing deeper layers of existence. The Big Bang didn't start everything, it started you. Wrap your mind around this. Before space and time existed, there was pure potential, a universal superposition containing every possible reality. Not emptiness, but fullness without form. Dr. Strum describes this as a formless creative force that collapsed from undifferentiated potential into the structured universe you see around you. This wasn't a random explosion of matter. It was consciousness differentiating itself, creating the conditions for individual awareness to emerge. You're not separate from that original creative act. You're a continuation of it, a localized expression of that infinite field experiencing itself through your eyes, your thoughts, your personal journey of awakening. Traditional cosmology told you the universe started as dead matter, that somehow spawned conscious beings billions of years later. This new framework flips the script entirely. Consciousness came first, and matter emerged as a secondary expression of it. You know that feeling when you're staring at a sunset or a star-filled sky and sense something vast beyond words. That's recognition, your individual consciousness touching the universal field it arose from. Buddhist philosophy calls this emptiness, but it's the opposite of nothing. It's the pregnant void containing all possibilities. Christian mystics described it as the divine presence in all things. Sufi poets wrote about dissolving into the beloved. They were all pointing at the same cosmic truth that physics is now beginning to formalize with equations. This changes spiritual growth from a metaphorical journey to a literal process of aligning with fundamental forces of reality. When spiritual teachers talk about raising your vibration or expanding consciousness, they're describing measurable shifts in how your localized awareness interfaces with the universal field. Think of it like upgrading your receiver. Meditation, energy work, and healing practices aren't changing reality. They're changing how clearly you perceive and interact with it. Read The Field by Lynn McTaggart. If you want to dive deeper into how consciousness operates as an interconnected web, or check out The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot for mind-bending perspectives on how your individual experience reflects the whole cosmos. Your brain is quantum tech running ancient software. Let's get practical. Inside your skull, billions of neurons fire simultaneously, and scientists now believe they're using quantum entanglement to communicate. Entanglement is when two particles stay connected regardless of distance. Affect one, the other instantly responds. That fatty substance called myelin wrapping your neural axons. It creates the perfect environment for this quantum weirdness to happen in your warm, wet brain. This solves a mystery that's bothered physicists for years. Quantum effects usually require temperatures near absolute zero, yet your body maintains quantum operations at normal temperatures. Plants figured this out millions of years ago. They use quantum superposition during photosynthesis, allowing energy particles to try all possible paths simultaneously and take the most efficient route. Your brain does something similar when processing information at unconscious speeds. Ever had an intuitive hit that proved correct, but couldn't explain how you knew? That might be your consciousness accessing information through quantum channels rather than logical deduction. Neuroscientist Mike Wiest points out that understanding consciousness as a quantum phenomenon will reshape how we think about awareness in coma patients, animals, and even artificial systems. This isn't science fiction. These are peer-reviewed studies published in journals like Neuro. The default mode network in your brain constantly generates your sense of individual self, that internal narrator commenting on everything. Research shows that during spiritual awakening experiences, activity in this network dramatically decreases. When that egoic chatter quiets down, you access states where the boundary between you and the universal consciousness field becomes permeable. This is why Enlightenment traditions across cultures emphasize transcending the ego, not to destroy yourself, but to experience your true self beyond the limited identity your brain habitually generates. Start with 10 minutes daily of focused attention meditation. Sit comfortably, focus on your breath, and when thoughts arise, simply notice them without engagement. You're training your brain to operate in modes that facilitate quantum coherence rather than chaotic neural noise. The 7 symptoms aren't problems, they're upgrades. If you've been experiencing what feels like spiritual isolation, where old friendships suddenly feel hollow and superficial, conversations drain your energy, that's not you becoming antisocial. You're operating at different frequencies now, and the dissonance creates discomfort. Your consciousness is literally synchronizing with deeper aspects of reality, making surface-level interactions feel incompatible. This phase can be lonely, but it's temporary. You're shedding alignments that no longer match your evolving vibrational state. Instead of forcing old connections, seek out communities aligned with transformation and self-knowledge. Join meditation groups, spiritual development courses, or online forums where people speak the language of awakening. You're beginning to understand. Energetic hypersensitivity shows up when you suddenly feel overwhelmed in crowds, pick up on others, emotions like they're your own, or can't tolerate environments you previously found normal. Your nervous system is becoming more finely tuned to the consciousness field, which means you're receiving more information than your filters can easily process. This isn't a curse. It's expanded perception developing without the proper boundaries. Learn energy protection techniques. Visualize a sphere of light around your body before entering overwhelming situations. Practice grounding exercises by imagining roots extending from your feet into the earth, and take regular breaks in nature to discharge accumulated energetic static. Energy Medicine by Donna Eden offers practical protocols for managing this heightened sensitivity. Then there's spiritual vision. Not hallucinations, but perceiving layers of reality usually filtered out by your brain's survival-focused attention. You might see subtle energy fields around living things, notice meaningful synchronicities constantly, or receive information through dreams and symbols. Dr. Strum's research suggests these experiences could result from consciousness field interactions becoming more accessible to your awareness. Rather than dismissing these as imagination, start documenting them in a journal. Track the patterns, test the accuracy of intuitive information, and develop discernment between genuine perception and wishful thinking. The mysticism traditions have maps for these territories. Explore texts like The Mystical Kabbalah by Dion Fortune or Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda to contextualize what you're experiencing within established frameworks. The universe isn't random, it's responsive. David Bohm's implicate order theory suggests everything unfolds from a deeper non-local reality where separation is illusion. John Wheeler's participatory universe goes further. Observation doesn't just reveal reality, it helps create it. If consciousness truly operates as Dr. Strum proposes, then your focused intention could influence quantum fluctuations in zero-point fields. Translation: your thoughts and emotions aren't isolated internal events. They're creating subtle patterns in the fabric of reality itself. This gives scientific backing to every spiritual tradition that emphasize the power of intention, prayer, and focused visualization. Studies have examined whether coherent mental states produce measurable effects beyond individual bodies. Synchronized brain activity between meditators in separate rooms, statistical anomalies in random number generators during global emotional events, even subtle changes in biophoton emissions from cells. The results are controversial and often subtle, but they consistently point toward consciousness having non-local effects. When you set a clear intention during meditation, you're not just thinking positively. You're potentially organizing quantum probabilities in alignment with that intention. This doesn't mean you can wish a Ferrari into existence tomorrow, but it does suggest your consciousness participates in co-creating your experience more directly than materialist science acknowledged. Start treating your mental and emotional states as creative forces rather than reactions to circumstances. Before sleep, spend 5 minutes visualizing your ideal next-day experience with sensory detail and emotional engagement. You're potentially priming quantum probabilities through focused consciousness. When challenges arise, ask, what is this situation inviting me to become? Rather than, why is this happening to me? You're shifting from victim to participant in an intelligent universe. Read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza for detailed protocols on using neuroscience and quantum principles to reshape your reality through elevated emotional states and clear intention. Healing isn't about fixing. It's about remembering. If your consciousness is a localized expression of a universal field that predates physical form, then healing takes on radical new meaning. You're not trying to repair a broken machine. You're removing interference patterns that block your natural alignment with wholeness. Dr. Strum describes individual consciousness as temporary ripples of awareness that appear separate but are fundamentally unified at the source. Disease, trauma, and psychological suffering create distortions in how your localized consciousness interfaces with the universal field. Healing practices, whether energy work, meditation, breath work, or somatic therapy, help restore coherence to that interface. This explains phenomena that conventional medicine struggles with: spontaneous remissions, placebo effects more powerful than drugs, and why identical treatments produce wildly different results in different patients. Your consciousness isn't passive. It's actively participating in organizing your biological reality. Research into meditation's effects shows measurable changes in brain structure, gene expression, and immune function. You're not just relaxing when you meditate. You're literally rewiring the quantum substrate of your neurobiology. Energy healing modalities like Reiki or Qigong, often dismissed as placebo, might be working with these consciousness field interactions that science is just beginning to formalize. The soul, in this framework, isn't some ethereal separate entity. It's your deepest identity as consciousness itself, prior to physical form. Soul-level healing means addressing misalignments at that fundamental level, not just managing symptoms in personality or body. Work with a skilled energy practitioner who understands these deeper dimensions. Explore breathwork practices like holotropic or Wim Hof methods that alter consciousness states, and consider plant medicine ceremonies in proper ceremonial contexts if legally available where you live. When the Body Says No, by Dr. Gabor Mate, illuminates how consciousness and physical health intertwine. Your healing journey becomes less about willpower and more about removing what blocks your natural resonance with wholeness. Personal development gets a cosmic upgrade. Everything you thought personal development meant just expanded exponentially. It's not about becoming successful or achieving goals anymore. Those are surface expressions. Real transformation happens when you recognize yourself as consciousness having a human experience, not a human occasionally having conscious experiences. This shift from ego identification to awareness identification changes everything. Failures become data, successes become expressions, and your worth stops depending on external validation. You're developing your capacity to consciously participate in the universal field that's constantly creating reality. Spiritual teachers have pointed toward this for millennia, but now you've got scientific frameworks to understand the mechanics. When you elevate your soul through practices that expand awareness, you're not engaging in wishful mysticism, you're engaging in empirical technology for consciousness development. The calling you feel toward awakening isn't random. It's your localized consciousness responding to its own deeper nature, like a river sensing the ocean it flows toward. That restlessness, that sense something's missing even when life looks good on paper. That's not dissatisfaction. It's recognition that you're designed for more than survival and comfort. Create a daily practice that combines multiple modalities. Start mornings with 20 minutes of meditation to establish conscious presence. Incorporate movement practices like yoga or Tai Chi that unite body awareness with mental focus. Study wisdom teachings from various traditions to build conceptual frameworks. And journal your experiences to track your evolution. Read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle alongside these physics papers and watch how they illuminate each other. Ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science pointing at identical truths from different angles. Your personal growth becomes participation in cosmic evolution itself. Consciousness waking up to its own nature through your specific life circumstances. What this means for your actual life tomorrow. Strip away the technical language and here's what matters. You're not a separate fragment scrambling for meaning in an indifferent universe. You're an expression of the fundamental consciousness that preceded and creates reality itself, equipped with a quantum-enabled brain capable of interfacing with dimensions of existence most people never access. Every spiritual practice you've encountered, prayer, meditation, energy work, contemplation, these are technologies for optimizing that interface. The transformation you're experiencing isn't psychological adjustment. It's your localized consciousness expanding into fuller recognition of its universal nature. This discovery validates your weirdest experiences and your deepest intuitions. Those moments when time seemed to stop, when you felt connected to everything, when knowledge arrived without learning. Those weren't departures from reality. They were glimpses into its deeper structure. The spiritual awakening you're navigating has a foundation in the fabric of existence itself. You don't need to convince anyone or prove anything. You need to trust what you're experiencing and develop the practices that deepen your conscious participation in this field. Start today, not tomorrow. Sit quietly for 10 minutes and simply observe awareness itself. Not thoughts, not sensations, but the consciousness aware of them. The universe isn't waiting for you to get perfect before revealing itself. It's revealing itself through your imperfect, messy, beautifully human process of awakening right now. Every challenge becomes an invitation to expand. Every confusion becomes a doorway to deeper understanding. And every moment of presence becomes direct participation in consciousness knowing itself. This isn't information to file away. It's a map for navigation as your very sense of self transforms. So here's the question that matters. Knowing what you now know about the cosmic nature of your consciousness, what will you do differently in the next hour of your life? How will you show up tomorrow when you remember you're not just in the universe? You're the universe experiencing itself through your unique perspective. Subscribe to continue exploring these territories where science and spirituality converge, revealing the extraordinary nature of ordinary existence. Enable notifications so you don't miss the next piece of this unfolding cosmic puzzle. Your awakening isn't separate from understanding reality. It is understanding reality, one insight at a time.